Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have a few more people that are going to join us. We've been told, so hey, good to see everybody's face. So we'll just give them a couple of minutes, but not a lot because we want to go ahead and get through our agenda and respect your time. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Good. All right. And John, I see you're on your iPhone. Will you be joining us by video at all today?
Probably not.
Okay. And Leonard, will you be joining us by video? Oh,
There he is.
yes. Thank you. So I think we're at 8:01. I want to go ahead and get started. Unless Julie or Linda, you have a different thought on that. I want to respect the good folks' time that are here, and this is recorded. So, that's one of the downsides, letting folks know you're going to record it, because then they make their decision based off of if they want to watch it later or not. So, okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen to get you started, Linda.
Did you press record?
I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh no, we got that set up to double check each other for sure. You don't want to mess that up. Okay, let's see.
There we go.
All right. Well, get this one all the way right. Boom.
All right.
Okay, Linda.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Melanie is on vacation this week, so I have the honor of talking about who all our investors are that make this program possible. Of course, the Lawrence County Board of Commissioners, Penn Power, and UPMC are our thought leaders. Elwood Group and Neshannock Township, the pace setters. Our advocates are Bruce and Marilees, Hickory Run Energy, Huntington Bank, and Packer Thomas. Finally, those who are our influencers are Arnett Carbis Toothman, Central Heating and Plumbing, Columbia Gas of PA, First Commonwealth Bank, LCAP, and Westminster College. Without their support, we couldn't do these kind of things. And Leadership Lawrence County, too, has added to the resources that we use to make this program possible. And with that, Terrence, Julie, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Thank you so much, Linda. And Linda, will you be hanging out with us for the day?
Oh, yes, I will.
Oh, awesome. Glad to hear that. And so, again, you are welcome. And before we jump into this, so this is a slide that we've had in every training that we've had so far. And we've had a chance to talk about some really, really good stuff over the 4 sessions. Everything from ethics to life cycles of nonprofits to, taking a dive into some diversity issues. What is a board? What's a board all about? And then today we're going to talk about how to keep board members engaged, how to attract board members, how to appropriately reassign or remove board members at the appropriate time. So, but before we do that, if you can unmute yourselves, take a look at the screen that's up, because we really have not stopped on this screen and by design until this point. So when you look at what helps a community to grow, and then what, kind of affects a dying community, some of the things that ail a dying community, when you look at that, what jumps out at you? I want to hear from a couple of folks.
Willing to tax themselves.
Yeah. Okay, good. What else jumps out at you?
As an educator, schools focus on sports.
Okay, I'm okay. Gotcha. And that's yes. Okay, so I had to find that real quick. So yeah, in a dying community. And how many times have we seen that, you all? Good. What else?
I think a lot of these points lead to an us versus them in a dying community of the people in power, the people that have lived there a long time versus not willing to accept newcomers or allowing those newcomers to become a part of the community.
Thank you so much. And we're going to talk about those small groups that hold a lot of power a little bit, I believe, towards the end of our session this morning. And you're going to hear me use the word oligarch. And I'm not saying Olive Garden, oligarch. I will mess that word up. It's possible. But at any rate, we'll get into what oligarchies do and how they affect boards and ultimately communities. Okay, is there one more?
I think controversy is avoided because a lot of times people want to stay with what's comfortable and they view controversy as something negative instead of something positive.
Isn't that the truth? So much of the work that we're getting right now, across the state of Georgia specifically, and I can be even more specific with myself, is dealing with just that. People not understanding how to have difficult conversations and productive conversations. I mean, you think about the racial climate, you think about the political climate. I mean, just the lines that are drawn now are so thick, and to be quite frank, so ridiculous at so many levels. And we can't even, see past our own noses to get the work done. And so to be able to know how to address controversy, conflict, difficult conversations in a real creative way to get to the greater good is what it's all about. Yeah, that's definitely one that would show the signs of a growing community when you know how to deal with that controversy. All right, one more for the order, or we're going to move on. Anybody else have a burning one for dying community or growing community? All right. So, welcome again, Julie.
Yes, so we are about to launch into the nonprofit board training number 104. And this is all around how to recruit board members, how to engage board members, how to know when it's a board member's time to go, and how to encourage them to move along.
Yeah.
When that happens. So
yeah.
we're going to look at recruiting, retaining, removing, and refreshing your board.
Yes. Does this sound of interest, group? No?
What's that?
I asked them if this sound of interest, and no one responded. We got to hang up. Well, I hope it's of interest. So we're going to talk about it anyway. So here we go. So the first thing that we have for you all this morning is there's going to be a total of 3 of you in each room, and we're going to give you a short amount of time. So you're going to have to talk quickly. You're going to only have like 7 or 8 minutes. But if you all want to just take a screenshot of this slide right here, what we want to know when you go into your room is when you think about the best and worst board experiences that you've ever had, what happened? What made it the best? What made it the worst? If it was a bad experience that you're going to highlight, how was it resolved, or was it resolved? If it was a good experience, what was done to reinforce that, to make sure that that experience could be replicated, that it was just not something that just happened on mistake. It's like, hey, y'all, I really like the way that went. How can we put things in place to make sure we can accelerate these types of behaviors? Okay, if it ended bad, did it end with board members leaving, or did it increase board engagement? All right, any questions before you all go to your rooms? And like I said, we'll bring you back in about 7 or 8 minutes. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin to send you. Hold on. There we go. All right. Craig. One. All right. And then John and Linda. All right. All right. See you all soon. Craig, are you having problems joining? Oh, there you go.
We go.
All right. So stop recording, I believe. Let me find that.
So it's 8:11. So we'll bring them back about 20 after.
Okay. First, close all rooms. Screen share. Share. Can you see my screen, Jules?
Yep,
Perfect.
looks good.
I'm really interested to hear their stories.
I know, right? Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. We're bringing everybody back now.
Yeah. We got the pop-up, so we figured we would drop back in.
Good, good, good. All right. I think we're waiting on a couple more folks. There we go. 6.
There we go.
2 more. Then it keeps getting kicked off. All right. I think we're good. All right. So hopefully you had good conversations in your rooms. Can someone share one of the best or worst experiences and kind of walk us through this from group one of the ones that stuck out from your conversation that was in the first group? And if you weren't, if you were in the first group, that was the group with Scott in it.
Maria, do you want to do that? You want me to do it?
You can go ahead and do it, Scott.
We just talked about the fact that we really haven't had any materially horrible experiences as a group.
Good.
We've had some small ones where you had 1 or 2 people that I joked that they were grumpy old men actually, but where they're just kind of railing against the whatever is on the agenda, but even that has been, generally it's meant they're asking legitimate questions, maybe not doing it all that well, but so again, that's all been positive. We really haven't had, probably the only negative experience that the group shared was boards where there was absolutely no engagement. It was just run by the CEO, and it was rubber stamped, and so again, that was generally the discussion.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And when you think about, and Julie's going to talk about board engagement some, that really is difficult to deal with sometimes when everyone's just kind of sitting around and not engaged. That can be a pain. How about from group 2? Any good experiences or bad experiences that you all want to bring a highlight?
Oh, John, please talk about the city manager. I like that. That was good.
Yeah, that was the last toss out. So I was making reference from the community I immediately was prior into, which was Sandusky, Ohio. Looking at your list of growing and strengths, and the city manager came into a very volatile city government between the board and the city manager. He was an employee, right? Hired in, but one of the first things he did was pass an economic development tax. It was well within the first couple months of the job. The city itself had never done anything like that, and more than a couple decades, it was 0.25% increase. And in his 3-year run on the job, he's rebuilt the schools. He's added to the downtown. I think last year they were voted #1 U.S. small coastal town, and they just keep on moving in COVID. They're truly growing. He came out of the city of Cleveland. His name's Eric Wopser. That was one of the goods, but it was immediately terrible prior to him showing up.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really, really good example. And so when you think about the board specifically around him, so did all of them survive, you know, from the, I love the way you worded that, immediately terrible? Did they just survive that immediately terrible to see the good stuff?
There was some transition. Some folks, again, that's an elected board. Some folks that did not get reelected and the next cycle, but many did. The core body that hired him into the position and supported him through some of the tougher changes, I think they're all still there.
Good, good, good. All right, you all, any other examples or comments? All right. So, Julie, I'm wondering how they currently attract board members, recruit them, get them on board.
And identify them in the
Yes.
first place, right?
So you all, when you think about that, what are you currently doing to attract board members?
I'll talk to this because I seem to be in these conversations a lot. This is an area we struggle locally. It seems like we have the same cast of characters on almost every board.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've pointed out is our leadership classes, and to keep a stock of everybody who goes through those and opportunities to get them placed on new boards. But I'm sure Linda could say it. If you go to many community boards, it's the same people, many places within Lawrence County. So
You're
any
right
insights
about
you have for recruiting and attraction of new, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some of those. Thank you for sharing that. That was actually very helpful. Any other thoughts on what you're currently doing to recruit board members before Julie and I give our spin on it?
I think sometimes it boils down to, diversity. And so there's a desire, I'd say, to identify whether it is people of color, women leaders and all, but you end up recycling, especially in our community, the same ones over and over. And I don't know if you can't give enough time to the various boards then, because people will identify the same person over and over again, and they try their best to do things, but it's too overwhelming. And to create more opportunities, like Craig here, he is an example of coming through the leadership program, and it's so wonderful to have fresh perspective coming on the board of the LCDC. It's really been helpful.
That's great. And I think in a lot of communities, that's the problem, is that there's the same people recycled on different boards across the community, and they just roll off one board and onto another, or they serve on multiple boards where it's sometimes too many boards, right? So
I think another point, this wasn't necessarily how I was recruited, but I think sometimes companies in an area have a vested interest in those boards. So they hold their position and make sure that someone from that company maintains a position on that board. So sometimes that's how recruitment happens as well.
Yes. And you all, so I want to go back to, I think it was series 102. You all have got to pull out that life cycle of nonprofit organizations. So when you're thinking about recruiting board members, know where you are in the life cycle. If you're in the startup phase of a nonprofit, the key is to make sure you have board members that are functional. I mean, these are going to be people that you know. A lot of times these are people that you may even know personally, so to speak. I mean, this is for upstart. This is for just getting things going. This is for getting your paperwork in. I mean, this is all the basic blocking and tackling, so to speak. But when you start to get to those other phases of being an adolescent in a mature organization, and you still have what it took to get things started, those same board members don't necessarily transition very well into being your best fundraisers, being your best influencers, and things of that sort. And the reverse is also true. If you go and get heavy hitters right in the beginning in a startup, you know what happens. They're bored. Why am I here? Da, da, da. And so you just want to make sure you balance that. A couple of other things to consider is, who's referring your board members, and a lot of times, folks will say, a board member will say while they're on the board, "Hey, I know this guy named Jed. He would be awesome for this board, and he's a real good guy. I've been knowing him for years. He served on several boards. Man, he'd be great." I've seen this happen 100 times. They bring Jed in without that CEO or that executive committee asking good follow-up questions. Okay, so Jed sounds like a nice guy, but how is he a nice fit for us here? And get those specifics. What does Jed bring? Okay, Jed brings a whole lot, but we have Tom, Jane, and Margaret who already have those skill sets. So we don't necessarily need Jed right now, but we'll put him on in the parking lot for later. But right now, we need someone who really, really is heavy in, let's just say, the real estate, helping us find land so we can expand or what have you. This is what we desire, versus just a referral. What's hard a lot of times is if you have a person of influence on your board who makes a referral. I know some of you will understand this. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's a referral, it's a request to put this person on the board. And that's where I think you got to have good relationship with your board, so the board can have good, honest conversations around, like, this person really, really sounds good, but just might not be the person for right now. So go ahead.
Oh, if you're looking for a board, another tool to use is a board matrix. And this is kind of like a spreadsheet that says, that helps you look at diversity among age, profession, skills, gender, race, all of those things that will help you kind of assess who you have on your board already, and also identify those people that might complement those folks serving on the board at this time.
We have a board development committee of our board, and we kind of meet, and we have we assess. We want to have representations. I'm at a YMCA, so we want to represent our membership on our board, mm-hmm. And then we decide what issues we're trying to address in the community, and that's how we try to, recruit board members, where we're at, what are the gaps in our community, where do we need, networking. And then we have the maybe top 5 new board recruits. And then we actually have a team that interviews those candidates. So it's kind of a two-way street, because our board is very high performing. They work, they fundraise, So if it's not a fit, it's not a fit, but it's an opportunity for both our board and the potential candidates to see if the board's a fit. But we just don't, we try to find people whose skill sets and talents are what we're looking for in that season, with what we're trying.
And Maria, I can tell you, I can hop in your amen corner on that. I just rolled off of a YMCA board here in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, and yes, and I'm serving as an ambassador for them right now. But I'm going to tell you, it was the most thorough process of recruitment. And once I got in, I saw, wow, okay, so we're passing around all these resumes. Everyone has input, and then after the committee interview, the names were then brought back to us to make decisions on. I mean, to fit specific needs. It was extremely thorough. Yes, perfect example. And so you all, and so when you're thinking about some of those slides that Julie talked about, sometimes a person of influence is the person you need right then and there. And so when you're recruiting, if you're on a board that says, a person's got to raise $1,500 a year or $3,000 a year, and you can't get that person of influence because that person of influence just doesn't have it because he or she is stretched out across 5 or 7 boards already, or for whatever reason, you have to be you have to be creative. And I will go with the YMCA again. When I joined the YMCA board, I was already serving on 5 or 6 boards. And I told them when I got on, I said, I got a lot of contacts, and this may resonate with you, Maria, or not, but we have a lack of space for soccer fields. And I knew of a ton of people at churches and parks where I could use my influence. So they had to change out my ability to pay, my yearly dues with my influence, which was worth way more money, getting them free soccer fields and things of that sort. So, so as you think about bringing folks on, think about what they have, think about your current standards, and see if you can be flexible to get the person that you need. If you need a big time fundraiser, again, in that whole recruitment process, do your homework. Make sure that they really can bring the funds in, or get you to the person who can bring the funds in. And then, know when your board needs worker bees. There's one board that I'm a part of, Parkview High School, and I mean, goodness gracious, the board is made up of about 8 or 9 worker bees, and the rest of us are more like administrative type stuff. But those worker bees are needed. I mean, it's insane. But if we had a lot of high influential people or just fundraisers, that board would collapse, because you need worker bees on that particular board. So know what you need and fill those slots. And then lastly, is know when you need a person for a specialty. Like and I'm just going to go from personal experiences. It's just easier to pull this out of my brain right now. I'm on one board just for conflict resolution. When there's conflict that arises in the community on this particular board, I'm just called in for that only. That's it. So know when you need to bring in a person for a specialty position. Julie, anything else to add to that?
I don't think so. I think recruiting board members, it's important to establish expectations on the front end. So the interview process is a great one, I think, Maria, where you're interviewing them to make sure that they're bringing what you need to the board, as well as making sure that you're expressing to them what you expect from them. So engaging board members, there's multiple ways to engage board members, but I think of meetings where there are multiple people who are just sitting around the table and not engaged in a board meeting, and how to avoid that. So I think the first thing you can do is provide just an excellent onboarding experience. So, after you've interviewed the potential board member and brought them onto the board, make sure that you're putting the time into doing an onboarding, a board member orientation, where the board member is or new board members are introduced to the organizational mission, the organizational makeup, the programs of the organization, the budget of the organization, all of the things that make it work, as well as going over the expectations again. You also want to establish clear lines of communication in between board meetings. So ensuring that you're communicating with board members in advance of board meetings to make sure that they understand what's going on in each of the committees of the board, that you're using virtual meeting tools that can allow them to engage, such as Zoom. What do you all do during COVID for your boards? Do you do Zoom meetings, or do you do in-person meetings still, or what do you do?
They're Zoom meetings.
Zoom meetings, okay. And do you feel like you're as engaged as you are at an in-person meeting?
No.
No, yeah. So does anybody have tips on how to make that not the case?
I just think it is what it is by the nature of the format. It's just not going to be as personal. Some of the advantages to a board meeting are the pre-meeting conversations around coffee and a good donut, or the
Absolutely.
post-meeting networking. And so just like this morning, right? This is all business. Not that it's a bad thing, but there's no meet and greet. No one's talking about how their kids are, what's going on in their lives. We don't get to know people as well. It's business, take care of business, and business, next business.
Exactly.
Well said.
So maybe creating a space for a social time outside of a board meeting is a good idea to help build those relationships that encourage people to stay on boards and to participate more on boards.
Yeah. And just, I'm thinking about what Leonard said was just like so important. We got to add it to our work. A good donut, Leonard. A good donut is the real deal, man. And so if you
Local bakery, no chains.
well, I'll be up there in the fall, and you're gonna have to meet me there for breakfast, Julie and I, man, or whatever time for a donut. But
Everybody knows where we're going to take them, and everybody knows what we're going to get them, right? We're going to get them a maize donut,
Right, the long.
glazed twist. You got to have a glazed twist.
oh my,
Yeah,
They all
there's
knew.
really-
I'm telling you, they all knew where we were going to go.
okay.
I'll be there.
Oh, it's on. So, but you all, just a couple of things before we leave this slide here with engagement. Whether you're in person or not, like Julie said, set up clear expectations. If you have consent items that folks are supposed to read before they get to a board meeting, don't cover those consent items once you're in the board meetings. Just say, did everybody read the consent items? If you got enough people to make your vote on it and keep it moving, keep that moving. That kills good board members that take the time to read consent items and they're ready to come in and move on to the business. Other things are the length of your board meetings. I've been in board meetings that last 3-4 hours at a time, punishing, painful. I've been in board meetings that were not even worth having because we were there for such a short amount of time, or we just he ha for so much. I'm thinking this is not a good use of my time. So there's a balance you got to strike with what Leonard talked about, is making sure you have time to be social, making sure that that there's any business that can be taken care of before you get there to make things run smoother and have a short amount of time together, that's in place. When you're there, have an agenda that folks have ahead of time, not just a last minute put together agenda, but folks can agree on and have their input on. And then making sure that whatever committee reports are going to be a part of that those folks are there and ready to present that. And then, of course, ending with next steps and just being real clear on that. And, and checking with people throughout the meeting. If you got folks who are, dozing off or not paying attention or not engaging, have that conversation with them. Hey, I noticed during the board meeting today, it seemed like I don't want to assign a feeling to you, but talk to me about where you're at right now. I mean, but let folks know the expectation is when you're here, we want you to be present, 100% present for that hour and a half, 2 hours. And hopefully some of those things will start to increase your board involvement and engagement.
And somebody mentioned a rubber stamp board before.
Yeah.
I want to reinforce that boards should be dealing with meaty issues. They should be dealing with the heart and soul of the organization and making some substantial decisions. And so no rubber stamps. And that's more on the executive director than on the board member, but the board members can make sure that the executive director is aware of their interest in discussing those issues.
Good. Thank you, Julie. And so we are to the Olive Garden. Sounds like I said that, right? So oligarchs. So when you think about oligarchs, you all, before I give my spiel on it, who has had experience with an oligarch on, let's say in a board situation or in a work situation? Who's had an experience with that? And let me be clear on what I'm talking about. That small group of people that are looking out for their own interests, individually, or how it might benefit their part, their part of the pie. Uh, it's not about, like we talked about in ethics, it's not about the greater good of all. It's about, pushing agendas. But they have the power to do so, and they do it. And so that oligarch is established. It's respected or not respected, but nonetheless, it's in power. Who's experienced that, and what is that? What did that look like?
Again, on a public board, not necessarily a private board. It's been my experience since service on the public board is uncompensated, that typically members of that public board come with agenda. Not necessarily bad, but an agenda nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
What I find is that you're right, Len, that they come with an agenda, and many times they're a bully. And that bullying overwhelms everybody else. And nobody wants to take that bully on. So they'll accept whatever that bully wants, just so they quiet down and they move on.
That's it. Yeah. And a lot of times those bullies often come in the form of that person that stays on that board like forever and a day, right? And just when they speak, it's, well, that's not how we've done it, that sounds good in theory, but let me tell you how it really is. I mean, so that they come across in that way. I've dealt with several oligarchs. That time I did almost say oligarchs over the years, and I will tell you, I see them when they're forming, because sometimes they can come from your executive committee. All of a sudden, the executive committee thinks that they have all the power and they're not bringing it back for a vote, but they're actually just going to just let you know what we decided to do. So if you're not careful, your executive committees can turn into oligarchs. If you have a board that once it started to develop, I've seen this happen before, and you start going through those stages in the life cycle, and you had people hang around, and you got 3 or 4 friends that are part of an oligarch. They've just kind of formed that, but they got enough voting power to keep things to kind of go their way. I've seen it happen that way. So they don't even have to be a part of the executive committee, but they're just a force and they have the influence. The way to break oligarchs up is to always drive people back to the mission. I can't tell you, and I think we talked about this, I can't remember if we did or not. Test this with your boards. The next time you're with your boards, ask your boards if they know the mission, if they can recite the mission of the agency that they're a part of. I don't expect for people to recite the mission verbatim, but if they don't have a clue as to what your mission is, that's scary, y'all. Because then I got to go back to you, Leonard, is why are you here? Are you here to push a particular agenda? Are you here just to check the box for the resume? I mean, you need to know what the mission is. Why are you willing to walk through fire for this particular board? What got you fired up about being on this board? And so when an oligarch starts to form, or you start to see that happening, what you can do is point those people back to, yep, that really benefits this sector. However, we're looking for the greater good of the community that we're serving. All right, so this piece right here, we're going to go to a breakout room, but you all, I just want to open this up for conversation. How and what do you do with board members that need to move on and serve in another capacity? If I can get you guys just to have an open conversation with me about that, and I don't want to talk about theory. I want to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of how you get that board member or members to serve in another capacity or to move on. What have you actually done? And then Julie and I will give you some things that we've done and recommend it.
I sit on the PA Downtown Center board, and there are limits on our terms. You have to go off for at least a year, and it is important, I think, for all boards. Nobody should be on them indefinitely. And I know that we've actually, in other boards, created bylaws that say you can stay on as long as you want. But I know the better practice is to have the term limits, have at least that year off, come back on. You can be on committees or things if you want to, but you don't have that much influence when you have to leave that board of directors.
Good, good, good,
That's
good.
right. It breaks up people from being on boards forever and turning into those oligarchs, so it helps people take a break. Maybe they decide during that break that they don't want to come back, or that they do want to come back, but it at least gives that board the freedom to operate without that person for at least a year.
Yeah, Linda, and those term limits are key. Um, I'll be meeting with the board a little bit later this morning after I meet with you all, and some of the people on this board have been on the board for 26 and 30 years, and it's like you can only get so far down the road because you're always getting a history lesson, right? So um, it's really interesting, but I do like the term limits. I do like the year off in between just to get a breather, get refreshed. That's the whole refreshing piece. But even like with the YMCA, when I talked about that earlier, Maria, when my term ended, my second term ended, I still felt like I had use to help them, and so they kept me on as a goofy name as an ambassador for the YMCA. So you can make up whatever kind of name you want to, but if you have a person that can be helpful to you and their term is up, they're not required to make any more meetings or do anything like that. But they may just pop in just to give an update on something that they worked on for the board or just be available to the board. Uh, what else have you done, you all as a group?
We do, each year each board member fills out a self-assessment,
Mm-hmm.
and there's about 20 questions related to their personal, how they feel about the board, about how the board is serving and about how they're serving in the board. And one of the questions at the very end is if they want to self-select off the board, because we
Right.
found that sometimes people just they don't want to resign, even though they're disengaged, because it's kind of like a black mark on them. But so if we give them the opportunity to really reflect on how they feel about serving on the board and are they still connected, and some people do just self-select off, and it kind of takes the pressure off of us. Now there are times that we have to have that, every time we see somebody, we keep statistics and everything, and we'll have the conversation. One of their peers, one of the board members on the board development committee, will talk to them about, we noticed you haven't been coming to the meetings, if you would like to take some time off, or we have those conversations. But a lot of times board members will just self-select off on their own with that question.
Mm-hmm. Good. What are some other creative things that is very helpful, Maria? What are some other creative things that you all do? What else? How many have created an advisory board to help out with that? Because if you have some folks that need to move on, or some people that you want to bring on that you just don't have space for right now, to have that advisory board off to the side is just another trick of the trade. And just naming folks as stakeholders after they serve their time. Just hey, we're developing a stakeholder group, and we just may call on this stakeholder to help out various committees when different work groups are formed. Would you like to be a stakeholder? That still gets to go on their resume. You still get a chance to use their influence and knowledge. When it comes to fundraising, what I found is that some and not all the time, but some fundraisers don't make the best board members. People who can get you access to funds. A lot of those folks are really good to have on committees, and work them from that angle. Julie, anything else you want to add to that?
Just beyond fundraising, there are marketing committees or event committees. I think it provides a place for people to actively support the mission of the organization without being on the board.
All right. And Maria, I like what you said about, a group coming to a board member that obviously has, algae growing on them because they're not doing anything. And so it's all in that first slide that we start talking about, is how to have those difficult conversations. If you're a member of a board, that's something you got to do. If folks are not making the meeting standard, or if there's a requirement around giving or participating in events and they're not there, one of the fastest ways to lose the respect of your good board members is to just let all that slide and don't address it. So hats off to you and anyone else who does take that bull by the horns and say, hey, we're not saying you got to get out of here, but we got to have a conversation, because we don't necessarily want you to go, but these behaviors have to go. I mean, the behaviors have to go. We really wanted you to be on this board because of what you bring, and we just need to see that. And that's a difficult conversation, but it has to be had to keep your board healthy. Any other comments?
I think, Maria, you also brought up a good point. A good way to approach these issues, if you are uncomfortable just directly confronting them, is to do a board evaluation, either an individual member evaluation or a board evaluation that looks at the board as a whole, to make sure that the organization is working toward the best interests of its board and the organization. And so you can look online, and there's a ton of free evaluations out there. If you need an evaluation, just let us know, and we'll be glad to share one with you.
Yeah. Yep. Well, hold on, guys. Before you go and fill this evaluation out, we're going to try to land this plane right at 9 o'clock, so I won't talk too long. But Julie and I just really appreciate this time with you all to have these conversations. Hats off to Alex for coming up with this unique format. It's something that we have not done before, an hour burst on Zoom, and it's just really neat way of getting information out. And hopefully that you've seen our approach is not to come in like we know it all, but to understand what you all know, and then we backfill on things that we know and or know in theory. And so we just want to thank you for the time you spent over these 4 sessions, especially the repeat offenders. We appreciate you.
Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure to see your faces again and to get to engage with you around this topic. So you see on the screen a QR code for an evaluation. If you could go ahead and go and fill that out. We'll give you a few minutes to do that. And we'll look forward to being up there in the fall.
And the donuts.
That's right.
Twisted glaze.
That's right.
I was afraid he's going to say some cream-filled donut, Julie. The twisted glaze is just that's it. That's it.
Well, my favorite is the Boston cream, but we'll let that go. And they also do a great maple eclair.
Okay.
Ooh. You got my attention on that one.
Again, good seeing you all. And once you're done with your evaluations, please feel free to go ahead and sign off and be safe. Enjoy the beautiful weather that you have.
Thanks. See ya.
You, Scott.
Thanks,
Take care.
Scott. Take care.
All right.
Right.
Stop the
Good job, sir.
So, sharing.